Okay, so this is a bit problematic because I already recorded this video before, but I noticed that my mic gain was kind of, it was like this. Do you want to hear me speak like this? Yeah, so I have to re-record the video. But that's all right. That's all right. I have no issue with that. I guess if anything, I'll just become more refined, like the topic. But anyway, by the way, before I start the video, I am gonna be playing Diablo 4, but there won't really be any spoilers, because I will just be doing a dungeon. Like there'll be nothing to the main story in this if you haven't played the game. So today's topic, I believe, that old graphics cause or create immersion. This is something that I've been thinking about for quite a while. That I do tend to just find that older games, like say early 2000s games. Oh my god, my volume is loud. Like early 2000s games, or you know, like maybe around 2010. Those games were immersive. I might also be a bit biased though, because to be fair, I'm born 2001, so I might be a bit biased. Like I did grow up with these games, so of course I'm gonna have like a nostalgia bias to it. But I do think there is some truth to what I'm saying, because I did end up looking up like a Reddit thread. I know, amazing research, of course. But I did end up looking at looking at a Reddit thread, and I found that some people think the same thing, and that there is some kind of truth to it. There's not really any direct correlation to it. But the main thing that I found is that, like, of course, companies have always, like, game companies have always, oh, I have too many items on me. Now, but of course, game companies have always kind of, like, aimed towards having, like, realistic graphics and stuff, but it's only pretty recently that realistic graphics have become, like, really realistic. If you look at something like Unreal Engine 5, as an example. Because earlier, like games didn't really look realistic, and when you can't have that ultra realism as a style, you like kind of automatically. I kind of assume that this is at least what it said. What one person in the Reddit thread said, that automatically you will kind of aim more towards a distinct style, and I have such a perfect example of this. Like, okay. Say we were to compare something like Half-Life 2 to maybe the Doom series, like Doom 2 or 3. Or Doom 3 would probably be the one that's the closest. But those games look so stupidly different from each other. Actually, I'm gonna look up some games right now. Yeah, so just some general games, like say Half-Life 2. Like the Grand Theft Auto series was really big back then, and still obviously is. BioShock got released. Halo, we have Halo. Like, say compare like Half-Life and Halo, like that's so wildly different. More do we have? Say you were to compare like Diablo 2 and World of Warcraft. Very different games. Very like stupidly different. But when you have styles that are so different and they really become like fictional, really fictional looking styles, is you can really feel like you delve into a different world. And I don't really know how else to explain that. But whenever I play something that is like very clearly fiction and doesn't really try to be realistic, it feels more immersive to me. And a great example on this is like pixel RPGs, Undertale, one of the most immersive games I've ever played, and it's like it's like just pixels. It's just pixels. That's it. But the story is just like wow. And my girlfriend, she also recommended me a game that's like, she says it's one of the most immersive games she's like ever played. And it's called Road Warden. And this game, it is purely text. You never see a single character, but it's still like, from what I hear, it'll still be more immersive than something like ultra realistic, like I'm gonna look up like ultra realistic games as well, because I did not come prepared enough. Yeah, it sounds like it'd be more immersive than something like Cyberpunk. I mean, Cyberpunk is really immersive, don't get me wrong, but like, I'd still say Undertale is more immersive, and Road Warden sounds more immersive by what you told me about it, and you know more immersive than something like The Witcher, Red Dead Redemption. Okay, let's just focus on Cyberpunk, okay? Because that's the one I have experience with the most. Like I haven't played Cyberpunk a lot, but like I think that Undertale is like significantly more immersive than Cyberpunk, and same with Half-Life. I don't have any nostalgia tied to Half-Life, but it's just like it's so unique looking because it really had to go with style. Like now you got so much focus on like, oh, but does the game have ray tracing and reflections and la da 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 da, and I'm like, I don't really care that much. Like obviously it's still cool to look at, but it's just not that important in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so editing Dom here. I would just like to add that there is like one game that utilizes this ultra realism to just like in a really really good way, and that's Metro Exodus. Because it feels realistic in the way that it plays as well, and it just doesn't look real. Like it looks realistic, but also acts realistic. Like you can delete, you can like remove all the UI if you want to, and that makes it feel actually ultra realistic. So I don't know if Cyberpunk was like the best example to use because it isn't really put in like a realistic world, but that's when ultra realism slaps. However, I still would not really say it's as immersive as something like Undertale or Half-Life or stuff like that. Like I still very much stand by my point that data graphics and simpler graphics tend to create more of an immersion. The next thing I wanted to talk about is that there's this strange thing that happens when you try to make especially like ultra realistic characters. And this is also something that was said in the Reddit thread. When you try to make ultra realistic characters, like when it comes to a certain point of realism, you kind of accidentally create an uncanny valley. And this is something that I have really noticed in Cyberpunk. Like holy dude, some characters in that game, they look so inhuman kind of, and it's like it's creepy. Like, of course they look realistic, but they don't look realistic enough, kind of, you know? And I don't really like that. I would much rather, going to take Undertale again as an example, I would much rather just look at a pixel character and, like, immerse myself in how their personality is. And it be a realistic that way, than be like, oh, this character looks like a real person. The only thing that I can think of where games, like, make ultra realistic characters actually look human, it's in cutscenes. We're gonna just like use Diablo 4 here now, just since I am playing it. The opening cinematic to Diablo 4, absolutely great. They really nailed like making the characters look real, and that's the thing. Like you gotta put a lot of effort into actually making them look real, because there is a lot of effort right now involved into that. To not be in that kind of uncanny valley category. So yeah, I look forward to seeing in the future when this uncanny valley becomes canny. But also, like, what I do find interesting, like something that I started thinking about once I was writing down some notes for this video, is this kind of extends into movies as well. I guess it's kind of like the same thing there, where like automatically when realism becomes something you can focus on, when it becomes realistic enough, like I guess companies kind of put too much weight into that, even if they do still focus on other parts of the story. Perfect example of this is comparing the first thing that I thought of is when I've watched like newer horror movies. I've watched one old horror movie, and they just, every single new one compares to the old one. I compare it to Psycho, like the old Psycho movie, and it just like, that movie is just so much better than every single new horror movie that I've watched. And I do find that like old movies just generally tend to be better. I don't remember the names of any old movies, but I just generally tend to like them a bit more, which is that's not even like nostalgia related because I don't have nostalgia to old movies. I didn't used to be like a big movie watcher when I was younger, so there quite literally is no nostalgia tied to it. But older movies, they just like it kind of I like that they lean more towards being fiction and it being like obvious that it is fiction rather than looking like real life, because I don't feel like you can delve into another world as much when it looks like real life, because then you're just delving into something that feels like real life and that's not another world. Like, you get what I mean? But notice how like the first thing I noticed is that like I brought up horror movies. That is because I do notice that this is something that affects especially the horror genre. Like stuff being old or not being realistic. Oh, this is unlocked. Okay. So there is this like thing that I've noticed in horror games. And horror movies, like especially just the genre horror, you know. Um I find that there's something about horror that makes it scary when it doesn't look like real life. I guess that's kind of like because this is not educated whatsoever, and this is just a guess, but I feel like maybe like the unknown is better portrayed in something that doesn't resemble real life because we're experienced with what we're experiencing, and then with a piece of fiction, it's like, oh, you don't know what to expect. But a perfect example of this is comparing newer horror games. I haven't played that many, but so I'm gonna compare like the main one I've played, the newer one, Resident Evil 7 to Amnesia: The Dark Descent. I do find Amnesia to be just generally more immersive. I think the Resident Evil 7 is great, amazing game, but it doesn't quite take me into the world in the same way. But I do have some nostalgia tied to the game, so I do easily become a bit biased. But there's this other game that I watched like a really long time ago. It's called I'm Scared, and I'm pretty sure that I've seen other people bring it up as an example in like video essays and stuff. But it's this pixel horror game where you got some strange face that's following you. I don't know, but I just remember it being really immersive. And same thing with specifically horror, when it is like a pixel RPG, it's just like way scarier. I feel like horror is just like so much more immersive and like easily portrayed in a non-realistic medium. Great example of that is what's it called? The Crooked Man. It's also like a pixel horror game, but it's an RPG. Pixel RPG. I think that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that game is just like, wow. Because it freaked me the fuck out when I was a little kid, dude. It scared the hell out of me. And I don't remember much of the story, but I just remember it being so scary. I do plan on playing that game. Maybe I should do that for a playthrough. But just, wow, dude. It's just like so immersive. But yeah, if you do have any thoughts about this subject, feel free to like leave a comment, because I'm not really well versed in this topic, and I would like really like to know what's behind causing this. But anyway, hope you have a good day. See ya.